Hi, 8th grade. Welcome back. So we're going to be reading from our novel Farewell to Manzanar by Jean Wakasuki Houston and James D. Houston. I hope you have your book handy. Once again, I'm not going to put it up on the screen. I'd like you to please follow along with me. We are going to be reading chapter 15 today if you choose to read it with me. It's really short, so I anticipate that I'll be able to get this one done in definitely less than 20 minutes. There are some challenging questions. They're not too hard though. I bet you can probably handle them on your own. Although there's one that I really had to dig to find where it goes back to. So I'm going to share that with you in just a minute. Let's take a look at the questions. So we have chapter 15, 4 questions. Question 1, why are the Isi more reluctant to leave Manzanar than the Nisi? So remember that the Isi are the ones who were born in Japan and came over to the United States. They are not allowed to become American citizens. Whereas the Nisi were born in the United States and technically are American citizens, but by naturalization rights, even though the Isi don't have those rights. How does that possibly play into them wanting to or not wanting to leave Manzanar? Question 2, as Woody leaves for the war, the family is upset. But we as the readers already know that he will survive the war and be okay. What evidence from an earlier chapter shows this? And I had to go back and look for it because I couldn't quite remember, but there is all the way back in chapter 3, when Jean is talking about different things that their family has done, she makes this reference that Woody became a pro wrestler. So we know that he had another career afterwards and that he will be just fine. So try to look back to chapter 3 and get some more details about that wrestling career of his. Question 3, what happened to Tom Dabashi? When Papa says he was already in jail, what does he mean? Now think about it. Where are they right now? Does that, it's surrounded by, look at the barbed wire. The camp that they're in is in barbed wire. Could that be what he's referring to? And number 4, in what ways is Woody very similar to his father? I'm hopeful that you're going to be able to come up with some great ideas on your own without me having to share too much there. But maybe as we read this chapter, we'll see some other ideas that we can compare to Papa. So chapter 15 starts on page 121. Please get your book out and let's take a look here. It is called Departures. So at this point in the book, more of them are starting to leave the camp. In the months to come, they would draw together even more closely, just as I would hold to them. My moment of separateness, of foreshadowing, but not yet a reality. So that moment of separateness when her mother and father were real close and she wasn't part of it, hinting towards what's to come. That's the foreshadowing. Our family had begun to dwindle, along with the entire camp population. By the end of 1944, about 6,000 people remained, and those for the most part were the aging and the young. Whoever had prospects on the outside and the energy to go was leaving, relocating, or entering military service. No one could blame them. To most of the Nisi, anything looked better than remaining in camp. For many of their parents, just the opposite was true. Eleanor and Shig had been the first of my family to leave. A few months after she had her baby, she moved back to Reno to stay with friends there. The next to go was Woody, who, in August 1944, had been drafted. When the notice came, he showed it to Papa. And now what do you do? Papa said glumly. I have to go. What if you refuse to answer the letter? It's my duty. What about those 26 boys from Tule Lake who refused to report? The judge in San Francisco ruled that they were right. It was in the papers. You can't lock somebody up because he might be disloyal and then make him join the army. That was the judge's conclusion. Well, right now, Tom Dabashi, who used to live over in Block 9, is in jail in Los Angeles for refusing to report for his physical. He was already in jail. Manzanar. Woody blinked, missing the point at first. Then he grinned. Come on, Pop. It's not that bad out here. Not anymore. Then why don't you stay? I'm gonna stay for a while until they call me up. They put me in the reserve unit in camp. It could be months. Maybe the war will be over by then. His unit was called up in November. We all went down to see them off at the main gate. 19 young men in their teens and 20s, some wearing suits and ties, some like Woody wearing overcoats and neck scarves against the cold, carrying satchels, traveling bags, shaving kits. They lined up 2 deep for a photo that ran later in the camp paper. Then we watched Woody join the shuffling line and climb aboard. For me, it was almost like watching Papa leave again. I didn't know where he was going or understand quite why. When his bus pulled out, I only knew that if anything happened to him, the world would probably be coming to an end, because nothing could happen to Woody. He had always been so solid. I hugged Mama while we watched his final wave through the window, his mustache lifting above that impish smile, as if we had all just pulled a fast one on the world. Chizu was with us, waving back. This made it almost like the day 3 years earlier we had watched the boat sail out of San Pedro Harbor, except that Chizu had 2 children now, and instead of a handful of fishermen's wives, there were 500 others with us there. Here, they had turned out like people in small towns all over the country to watch their young men leave. The 442nd Combat Regiment was famous now, full of heroes fighting in Europe to help the Allies win the war, and showing that Nieces too could be patriots. Woody was that kind of Niece, anxious to prove to the world his loyalty, his manhood, something about his family honor. Climbing aboard, he must have been thinking of those things while Mama, no doubt, was thinking of the mother at Manzanar, who had already received a posthumous Congressional Medal of Honor on behalf of her son, who'd been killed in Italy. Posthumous means after death. So she's getting the medal for her son. In these ways, it was a typical wartime departure, full of proud smiles and half-concealed worry. In other ways, it was edged with unique uncertainties. Families were being further torn asunder, and those left behind them knew no more about their own fate than they did of the loved ones moving on. Would we still be here after the war? Would we be living forever in the summer heat and winter wind of Owens Valley? And if not there, then where else? The answers to these questions, when they came, only added to our insecurity. So the last question there, but when you're comparing Woody to Papa, there's several descriptions about Woody as he's leaving and the things that he wants to prove and about his manhood, etc. I want you to think about Papa, about how Papa acted when he was arrested, and also how Papa was when he first came to this country, and see what comparisons you can draw between Papa's behaviors and between Woody's behaviors. How are they similar? So that was a pretty short one. We're wrapped up for today, and I hope you have a good day.